So thanks for joining us. We're going to do a quick review of the new documentary by Vlad Yudin called Kai, which is Kai Greene's long-awaited documentary about his life story up to this point. Now, if you're just stumbling upon this video and you don't know who these two guys are, my name's Mike Pulcinella. I'm a videographer and a documentarian. I worked with Kai Greene on some of his older documentaries, older videos, back when he was a Muscle Meds sponsored athlete. And the guy sitting with me is my younger brother, Dave, who is a lifetime bodybuilder since he was 14 years old and a huge fan of the sport and a huge fan of Kai, too, I think. So together, we're going to give you our views on this documentary. I watched it a few days ago, and Dave just watched it last night. Full disclosure, I'm in the documentary, so obviously I have a different feeling about it than most people would. I was interviewed for the documentary, so you can take that with a grain of salt.
Well, how is that going to affect really what you think about the movie? It's
I don't know. I'm not sure that it will. I'm not sure that it will.
I know you well enough to know that you can put that aside and evaluate the movie based on the movie and just the movie, not the fact that your big fat head is in it. And by the way, who doesn't know who we are? Do you know who we are? And if you don't know who we are, shame on you, not us.
Well, I'm hoping this thing goes viral and that all kinds of people who don't know us will be seeing it.
Dude, whenever you hope something goes viral, it won't go viral. It's the things that you do off the cuff that you never think will stick that go viral. Like raising the bar was just an accident. You didn't set out to be like, I'm going to make this thing that everyone's going to watch and it's going to be different than the Mitsuri Okabe movies and it's going to set the stage for like a whole new brand of movie. That's what I'm going to do. That's not what you said at all.
So that what Dave's talking about, if you don't know, is our first work together, which is called Raising the Bar. You can see clips of it on my YouTube channel. You can also see my previous work with Kai Greene on this YouTube channel. A Day in the Life of the Bodybuilder, Overkill, and Redemption, full-length documentaries that I made with him. So that can all be seen here. I'll tell you one thing. When I saw myself on screen, dude, I was aghast. I thought I looked really, really old, and I immediately went and bought some Just for Men and dyed my beard.
I think you were a little overweight for you. You're a little heavier than you should be. You look really good right now.
Thank
really
you.
good.
All right, that's the vanity section of this review. So.
The whole thing will be a vanity section.
So this is going to be a quick review of the new Kai Greene documentary, which finally tells the life story of Kai Greene. Now, he had kept a lot of the details of his young life secret for a long time. He was waiting to tell that story his way, on film, and I think this documentary succeeds in realizing his vision. I also have a few critiques of the film as well, which I will get to towards the end. Give me your first impressions.
The film is fantastic. Had my attention from the very start to the very finish. I absolutely loved the recanting of the entire rivalry part with Phil. That was presented in a way that I had never really seen it before, and I would love to watch it again. I was left a little flat with how much they let you in on the beginning of it. He talks about it in his trademark, vague, abstract way without really...
He removes himself from it by talking about it in the second or third person. When you are in a situation like this, and then we experienced this.
Saying you instead of I bothers me. It's you are removing yourself from the actual experience, which for the listener removes them from the experience as well.
That bothered me a lot during the time that I was working with him. He would extract himself from the narrative that he was telling. I do think in part it's because some of it is so painful that he needs to do that. He needs to take 2 steps away.
I can only speak for myself, but I had, when you were filming me for Raising the Bar, zero problem with recanting my pain and showing it and wearing my heart on my sleeve. I guess we're different creatures. And I guess I can't compare my pain to his. I'm sure what he went through was infinitely worse than what I did. So how can I compare the two? I just know how I am, and I'm an open book, probably to my detriment sometimes. But I was expecting that from him. I thought he had come to a place in his life where he could be completely transparent, but he's not there yet.
No, maybe he needs some more therapy or something. I don't know if he ever went into therapy, but that would help.
Maybe he
That would
just
certainly
needs to
help.
keep this close to his heart and we're not privy.
So what did you think of the reenactments in general? I really liked
They were
the
great.
teen Kai
The
that they
kid that got
got.
to play Kai was perfect.
He was
Perfect. Although
perfect.
Kai was a lot more muscular than that by that age already.
At that time. Oh, I want to talk about that in a second. I want to just mention that Vlad Yudin and his crew are consummate filmmakers. That is some
clearly.
beautiful filmmaking. They do films. They're not just in the bodybuilding realm, because these guys did Generation Iron, which was supposed to be, the new pumping iron. And a series of them. But they're not just bodybuilding filmmakers. They do all kinds of films that are in, film festivals and things like that. And you could see that in the reenactments of Kai's young life. I thought were beautifully done. And I loved the casting, the actor that they got was really good.
He was really good. The interviews that they had, I think were such a high point of this movie.
With Kai?
With Kai, with Phil Heath, by the way. And I think Phil Heath came off as being very magnanimous and kind of likable for once. And I was actually very impressed that he gave them as much time as he did for this movie, considering the rivalry they had. But he did an amazing job with the interviews. Gerard was fantastic. I mean, they all were. George Farah. I mean, to me, a high point of this movie was the interviews. In depth. I mean, Mike O'Hearn, people who actually know him on a much deeper level, speaking on him, I think, and they were being very candid.
One of the things that I thought that they handled really well was the talk about when Kai decided to go from a natural bodybuilder to an enhanced bodybuilder. Obviously, you can't say the word steroids because in this country they're still illegal, but it is a part of upper level bodybuilding that kind of had to be addressed because he did stay natural for a long time. So I thought that the way that they put it, where it was a decision, and it's always a decision for a competitive bodybuilder, and it's a difficult decision, but what I want to do is I kind of want to circumvent this certain group of people led by a certain YouTuber who want to claim that, steroids is cheating. It's a part of this sport. It's an understood risk of the sport. And I thought in the film that they addressed it really well. What did you think?
Yeah, there are several people whose main goal in life is to vilify steroids. I thought they handled it very well as well, because there's just only so much you can say in today's climate with the way it is. I mean, it's pretty bad. You can't even use that damn word anymore.
I began to seek out the support and wisdom from an old friend that, from what I understood, had a much clearer and diversified understanding of the dark arts. I had to do what I had to do.
I think he tried to take natural as far as he could, but there comes a point where when to be the greatest of all time, you've got to take some risks. And he began to take his risks, like everyone does. There shouldn't be a stigma attached to it, but because there is, many bodybuilders hold that close to the vest and they won't talk about it, even though we understand that's a necessary part of taking your body beyond its natural limits. It's what bodybuilding is.
You need to have the regimen on deck. And again, I'm sorry to crush your dreams or whatever. Your regimen is so extreme that 99% of the people watching this have no clue.
Along the same lines, what Kai achieved prior to using was nothing short of phenomenal. There's really only two people in the history of the sport who turned pro clean, as far as I can think of. It would be him and Sean Roden.
You remember Kai on stage as a teen, don't you?
I was
Didn't you
in
have a
that
story about
show. They were showing pictures from a show that I was actually in. I was in the open. I had taken second in the heavyweights, and Kai had won the light heavyweights.
What year was that?
1993. Lou Ferrigno, Mike Matarazzo were guest posers, and he was in the teen division. He blew the teen division away. I remember seeing him. I remember him distinctly because he stood out. And then I think he even won his class in the open, but lost the overall. We both lost the overall to the heavyweight or something.
What did you think of him at that time?
I thought, here's a kid who is destined for great things. Obviously, from day one, I thought that. Here's a kid who's destined for great things. He was in the teenage division and just looked like he didn't belong there. I believe he won his class in the open and just lost the overall to the super heavy. It was just
amazing.
He was so far ahead in development and quality for a teenager. We talked about him for like months and months after that show at the gym. We were like, that Kai kid. Remember that Kai kid? When we got the pictures back, after all the pictures came back, we were like, what was his name? Kai? He's going places. Yeah, we talked about him.
Those pictures that you saw in the documentary were your pictures that I gave to them.
I know.
Okay.
I know.
You realize that.
Yeah. I've seen those pictures so many times. I do also wonder if maybe this movie would have been better timed about 10 years ago than it is now, as far as being accepted. Like he's kind of, I don't know, is he still as relevant as he needs to be to make this work?
Well, that's the point. He's trying to recreate himself. He's trying to jumpstart his career. He's trying to go to the next part of his career, whatever that might be. And he's got several things in the works. I really think he's trying to promote all that as much as tell this story. And I do want to say at this point that when I was working with Kai and he was telling me these stories, I knew that it would make an amazing film, either reenactments or just a documentary talking about it. But he would not let me film any of it, and rightfully so. He was keeping his own personal private story to himself. I offered to do it, and I don't think, boss, by the way, I could have done a great a job as
You don't think you could have done as good of a job? No.
With the reenactments, no. I'm not really a filmmaker.
I was watching, really? A lot of the time I was watching, I was thinking how you would have done compared to this, and sometimes you were coming out on top. Sometimes you were not. Sometimes you were.
I think with the purely filmmaking stuff, the reenactments and stuff, those guys really have a handle on that in a way that I do not.
Well, you've never really done it.
I've never really done it. No, at the time he was being sponsored by Muscle Meds. Muscle Meds, makers of Carnivore, who I still work for, by the way. And when a company sponsors you, they can use your likeness to sell products. That's really what it's about. And I was asking him to give us his life story, and he should not have done that. He did not do that, and he was saving it for himself to make this film eventually. I think the timing of it is probably good for him because, again, he's trying to, like, this chapter is over, and now comes the new chapter of Kai.
In light of all that, I'm really surprised he gave you what he did for your day in the life and redemption and all of that, because you were nobody, dude. He didn't know who you were. You weren't even a bodybuilder. Here you are, an outsider, obtrusively shoving your camera in his face. I'm surprised he gave you what he did. After the fact, though, when he saw what you had produced, he realized what you were going after, and he wished he had given you more, correct?
Well, actually, that brings me to another missing component of this documentary. It wasn't Kai that really wished he had given me more. It was his trainer at the time, Oscar Arden, who, if you notice, Oscar is completely absent from this documentary.
Yes, I did notice that.
The filmmakers obviously reached out to me to do some interviews, and they asked me to get in touch with Oscar because he was not returning their phone calls. Now, if you don't know, Oscar and Kai ended their relationship on bad terms, on very bad terms. I don't think they've spoken since they've gone their separate ways. I reached out to Oscar. I have his private number, and I asked him, I said, dude, you've got to be a part of this. And he refused. I don't know the inside story of their split. I don't know why. It must have been bad. But he said he didn't want to be a part of it. And I think that's a huge chunk missing from Kai's life story. And I think even Kai should agree. The only mention they made of Oscar was George Farah, who took over from Oscar very well, obviously, did some great work with Kai and brought him to new heights. George Farah is a great coach.
Oh, no doubt. But 2014 was an amazing year for Kai.
Unbelievable.
Never looked like that before.
George was the guy, right?
Agreed.
But the only mention they really make of Oscar was George said something about, his previous coach, they got into a disagreement about his gut or something like that. And so it was a very classy way to handle it, I thought. But I missed seeing Oscar in there. Obviously, if you go to watch my documentaries with Kai on this YouTube channel, you'll see a lot of Oscar Arden because that was the period of time where they were really close together. And I compared them at that time to Cus and Mike Tyson. It had that kind of coach/father feeling. I still think it's it's valuable to view that relationship, but they obviously couldn't put it in there for various reasons.
Makes sense, yeah. And you know what? I wasn't even acutely aware of his absence until you just brought it up. But yeah, huge component missing, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, the fact that you weren't really aware of it says a lot about the filmmakers making a great film with a missing chunk of the story.
Agreed.
That you knew very well about.
Agreed.
So most people won't even realize that.
So that must have been a pretty bad breakup, huh?
It was. It was a very bad breakup.
You know, I don't see him as being someone who would be spiteful just for the sake of
vindictive.
Spite.
No, I don't either. We've all gone through breakups, and the worst ones are the ones where you are the closest when you're together.
Yes.
Right? Those are the ones that are the most painful when you finally...
Because for every yin, there's
apart.
a yang, right? For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So if you lukewarm like somebody, you will lukewarm hate them when you split up. If you absolutely was in love with someone, you will absolutely be in hate with them when you split up. So I'm feeling what you're saying.
All right, so let's wrap this up. I'm going to give you my summary, and it's in two parts, and then I'd like to get your thoughts on this. So unlike the original Pumping Iron movie, and to a certain extent Generation Iron series, I don't think Kai is a mainstream movie. I don't think it'll cross over to where people who aren't bodybuilding fans will be watching this, because it focuses so heavily on bodybuilding minutia and, of course, the rivalry between Kai and his nemesis Phil Heath, which led to Kai's withdrawal from bodybuilding for a while. However, I do think that any person outside of the sport who wanted to learn a little more about it, and one of its most controversial stars, would enjoy it. Kai's early story would be touching and relatable to anyone, so I give it 3 stars for a mainstream audience. However, while lack of mainstream appeal might be bad news for Vlad and his production company, obviously, I really think it's good news for bodybuilding fans, because anyone who loves this wacky, crazy sport will definitely enjoy this documentary. And for those who are Kai Greene fans, it is a must-see. I would say 4.5 stars for bodybuilding and Kai Greene fans.
So I don't have like a huge Siskel and Ebert thing prepared like you did. But I will say this, despite my critique about the beginning part of his life, and it could have gone more in depth, it was still phenomenal, still more than I've ever seen in terms of illuminating what happened to him as a youngster and setting the stage for the man he became. So I think anyone who didn't have the knowledge I had going in is going to be really, really educated about his beginnings, much more so than I even was. However, the movie as a whole, I think, was fantastic. I think it represents a new level of quality and in-depth coverage of the mind and persona of one of our most amazing athletes. Kai Greene is a multifaceted person, and you get to see a lot of that in this movie. I think it could have even been showcased even more, but they did touch upon his artwork, his desire to go forward into the acting field, everything he's done prior in bodybuilding, and all of his accomplishments are well documented. And I think it was entertaining from start to finish. Again, I would recommend it to, I disagree with you in the fact that I do think it has crossover appeal. I don't think you need to be a bodybuilder to appreciate this story. And I think anyone who likes a good movie would love this movie.
Excellent. I do want to say to bodybuilding fans that there's not a lot of training footage. Very often bodybuilding fans like to see training footage. There is some, and there's quite a bit with Kai training with his shirt off, which I know is set up for the filmmakers, because he would never do that in real life, and he would rarely do that for me.
Amazing.
He always trains covered up. So, but there's some beautiful shots. So thanks for joining us for this review of The Kai Greene Story. Kai, The Kai Greene Story by Vlad Yudin and his crew from Generation Iron. You can watch this on iTunes, Vimeo On Demand, Amazon Instant Video, or Google Play. So far, there may be other places, but those are the 4 places that you can watch it right now. And I definitely think it's worth it. I think it's a great movie, and I was really happy and proud to be a part of it.
I was shocked that you were a part of it. It's like blew my mind. I'm thinking to
I
myself,
should-
how did I spend 3 decades as a bodybuilder, and yet you are the one in a bodybuilding documentary and not me? How does that work?
It's certainly not because
You
of my
are now
physique.
in bodybuilding documentaries. You.
Sorry. That's
The
how
person I
life
used to have
works
to
out.
drag by his feet down the stairs to the basement to work out with me while you were saying, no.
He
You're in
forced me to
bodybuilding
be his
documentary.
workout partner. He
Jesus.
forced me to be his workout partner when we were
You were,
kids. That's true.
you were the worst training partner I ever had. You have that distinction.
Well, thank you very much. And thank
Actually,
you
when
for
I got
helping
you
me with
down there, you were actually pretty intense when I would get you down there. But you always wanted to watch the Dukes of Hazzard.
No.
What was it that you wanted to
Happy
watch?
days. Happy days.
That's even worse.
It is worse. No, we used to watch the Hulk and the Dukes of Hazzard together on Friday nights, if
I
you
can
remember.
see the whole. I used to watch the Hulk
That-
first, then go downstairs.
Yeah.
Because I used to get
Yeah,
so
well,
fired up. Just
That's
watching
great.
that show.
well, thanks for helping me with this review. I knew that your perspective would be
Well, thank you
good.
for having me. I really enjoyed the movie. I got to be honest.
I'm
I
glad.
want to see it again.